We're really excited to have everybody on today. We've got a very, very special guest, someone that I've known for many, many years, going on 20 years. I first met Barry in 2004 and have followed him ever since. I think he is the best prognosticator in the mortgage and real estate space as far as what to expect in coming markets. So we're really excited to have him on today. Just to give you guys a quick background, then I'll turn it over to Barry. He has founded many companies, including Mortgage Market Guide, his current company, MBS Highway, Experience.com. He was the lead producer of Rock of Ages and Mind Freak, Chris Angel's production in Las Vegas. And most importantly, he was a three-time winner of Zillow's Crystal Ball Award, which was given to the economist out of 150 that had the most accurate forecast. So we're really excited to have Barry on the call today. And with that, Barry, I'll turn the floor over and it's all yours.
Well, thanks, Mike. Hope everybody's doing well. Appreciate your joining today. I think many of us are curious as to what to expect in the market today. We have a lot of people out there saying that mortgage rates are going to 10%, real estate market's going to crash. Where's the Fed going with rates? We hear even Fed members saying the Fed's going to push the Fed funds rate, which is currently between 3.75% and 4%, up to 7%. So there's a lot of reason why people are concerned, confused, questioning what to expect. So what we're going to break down for you today is where rates are going and why, so that you can understand it and explain it, and where the real estate market's going, because there truly is an enormous opportunity in real estate today, right now. There's the opportunity that you've been waiting for. We're going to break that down for you. We're going to explain why there is such an opportunity and how your customers can see it. Remember, opportunity is when it becomes obvious, it's no longer an opportunity. Discovering an opportunity is something where it's not as easily seen by everyone, but once you understand the logic and the methodology, you can certainly understand and see it. You know, what Mike didn't say is some of the things that we have done in the past is, we call the exact bottom of the 10-year treasury at 0.5% on Fox. You could pull it up on YouTube or you could pull it up on Fox's site. Everyone was thinking that rates were going to go up. We said it's going to go to 0.5% on the 10-year treasury. The only one who called that, they were kind of yelling at me and debating, but where did it go? You could pull it up, went to exactly 0.5% back in, and I'll show you why, so you can do this for yourself. Back in the month of May, back in May, we said that mortgage rates were going to have a very difficult summer and go up a lot. But then we said, circle on your calendar November 10th. And sure enough, November 10th, mortgage rates started coming down. We're going to show you why, so that you could see these things, that we're going to take you to places that other people won't take you and won't show you, because the news is good. Now, here's the thing, is that just like you, I've got one of these things. And it's constantly pinging me. It's either going to be ringing with calls or texts, emails, the gamut. You got it. I'm going to explain some really high level concepts, but I promise you that they will be brought to you and explained to you in a way that you will be able to understand, and not just understand, teach and explain. It's going to be very valuable for you, for your business. It may even be life-changing for you. It's going to be very valuable for your social media if you use social media, because you will be on the cutting edge. It will certainly get you more business and more referrals. It's just one catch. The one catch is that you have to be engaged and focused. If you're not going to be engaged and focused, I'd say just hang up now, because it's going to be hard for you to piece it together. But if you let the world turn without you for the next 60 minutes, I can promise you that you will be extraordinarily rewarded with the results that you're going to receive. So let's get down to it. We know that real estate is very confusing because it's local, but it's also something that is correlated to supply and demand, but influenced greatly by interest rates, and mortgage rates, and specifically are what's going to generate a lot of change within the real estate market. Now, we've seen mortgage rates go up a lot. So what's causing that? A lot of people mistakenly think it's our Fed. Our Federal Reserve has pushed mortgage rates higher. That is not the case. We're going to explain why that misconception, which the media gets wrong, so many people get wrong, so-called experts get wrong, and why they don't understand it. Mortgage rates are driven by inflation. Inflation causes rates to rise, and it causes rates to drop. That's the main focus and the main driver. So why is that the case? Well, you see, if you were the recipient of a mortgage payment, let's say you're issuing mortgages, and that's what you do. You have a fund, you're issuing mortgages, you collect those payments. Well, if you got a check for a mortgage, let's just use round numbers. Say it's a $400,000 mortgage and you're getting $2,000 a month. Well, you get that $2,000 check and you go out and you get a shopping list of goods and services. Next month, you get the check for $2,000 and maybe you get everything on that list again. But over time, you discover that while the check still says $2,000, it doesn't feel like $2,000 used to. It doesn't go as far. It buys less and less and less. Why? Because inflation. Now, a year ago, inflation was very low. It was like 1%. So the erosion of your buying power was very minimal. So you were preserving a great deal of your buying power, which meant you could afford to have a low rate. But now inflation's moved up. With inflation moving up, that means your buying power is getting eroded much more quickly. So you can't do anything about the loans you've already given. But on future loans, how do you protect yourself? Well, the next time you do a $400,000 loan, you don't want $2,000 a month. You might want $2,300 or $2,400 a month because that gives you a higher perch to offset the more rapid rate of erosion. And this is an important concept. So as inflation goes up, mortgage rates have to go up. But as inflation comes down, mortgage rates come down. And what I'll show you is the Fed plays a very interesting role. See, the Fed has a lot of things that they influence: short-term rates, credit cards, car loans, business loans. But mortgage rates have an interesting relationship. You see, what the Fed tries to do is by hiking rates, they try and slow economic activity and therefore they slow inflation. And when inflation comes down and gets under control, mortgage rates start coming down. In the past month, you've seen the Fed hike 0.75%, and mortgage rates have come down in the same past month since they hiked 0.75% by nearly 1%. So what you're seeing is now the Fed's actions are starting to influence inflation, and inflation starts coming down. And that means mortgage rates start coming down. And that means there's more buyers out there. So we're going to talk all about that. So let's take a look at some charts and some slides, because I really do believe that this is the opportunity that you've been waiting for in housing. So as we take a look at this, folks, and we say, okay, we talked about inflation and we talked about its relationship with mortgage rates. Well, let me show it to you. The bottom pink line here, this is inflation. And notice how inflation went up about 1%. And what did mortgage rates do? Well, they went up about 1%. Inflation came down and mortgage rates came way down. Inflation went flat, mortgage rates went flat. Inflation peaked up a little bit here, mortgage rates peaked up a little bit here. And then we had, of course, the pandemic and the recession. So we had that recession that started in early 2020, followed by a pandemic, like a double whammy there. The Fed said, okay, look, we're in kind of uncharted waters here, and let's step in. And what they did when they stepped in was they essentially started buying lots of mortgage-backed securities, mortgage bonds. And they essentially fixed the mortgage market. You see this quantitative easing, or QE, that means the Fed's buying mortgage bonds. They bought enough mortgage bonds, and look here, it's 3%. They bought enough mortgage bonds to keep mortgage rates at 3%. Now, that was okay when inflation was at 1%, but something started to happen. All that stimulus, low rates, it started to push inflation higher. Now, the Fed, of course, you all recall, said, hey, it's transitory. Of course, they were dead wrong. They don't understand how it works. But mortgage rates did not respond like they usually do. Why? Well, they were fixed by the Fed. They bought enough mortgage bonds to keep mortgage rates at 3%. Now, once inflation got out of hand, the Fed finally woke up and they said, hey, it's not transitory. We've got a big problem on our hands. Inflation was already up from 1% to 5%. And they said, we got to do something. And they started by ceasing their purchase of mortgage-backed securities. So they stopped rigging the game. And when they stopped, what did mortgage bonds do? Well, they do what they always do. They follow inflation. So as inflation went up, mortgage bonds went up. Mortgage rates went up, I should say. As inflation took a little bit of a reprieve in the spring, so did mortgage rates. But then when inflation took off, mortgage rates took off. Now on November 10th, when we got the October inflation data, inflation showed that it was coming down. And what did mortgage rates do? They followed suit. So what is inflation anyway? Let me explain it to you. Inflation is simply too many dollars chasing too few goods. That's the definition of inflation. Look, you saw this in the real estate market, right? Too many people with money, that's too many dollars, chasing too little homes on the market and inventory, it pushed prices up. You experienced it during the pandemic with things like toilet paper. Too many people wanted it and needed it. There wasn't enough on the shelf. So what happened to prices of it? So you get the picture here. It's supply and demand. So how does the Fed impact this? Well, for every $17 in the money system, can somebody just mute, please? 16 of it is credit. So credit has an enormous influence in the amount of money that's out there. So if the Fed wants to slow the amount of money out there, what the Fed's going to do is try to influence credit to slow down. And what do? Now, they don't influence mortgage rates when they hike rates or lower rates, but they do influence many other things. A business trying to take out a big loan to build a factory for hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, when the Fed funds rate was at 0 and maybe they're paying 2% above that, maybe the economics make sense. But now with the Fed funds rate at 4 going to 4.5 next week, well, that means they might be paying 6.5 on hundreds of millions of dollars. Maybe it doesn't make sense. So they don't take out that loan and that money doesn't get into the system. But things like credit cards, personal loans, car loans, think of it this way. 6 months ago, a family went to go buy a car. And when they did, they looked at this beautiful $60,000 car. They said, how much is the monthly payment? They said, $600 a month. They said, I'll take it. Now, what did they do? Did they write a check for $60,000? No, most of the time they signed a piece of paper, didn't do anything financially, and drove away. Now, obviously the dealership had to get paid. How did that happen? Someone at a lender or a bank made a few keystrokes and poof, $60,000 appeared and was wired into the account. But now with all the Fed rate hikes, a family today might go look at that $60,000 car and say, what's the payment? It's no longer $600 a month. It's now $1,000 a month. And you know what that family might say? Maybe I'll drive the car I have a little bit longer. And so there's no keystroke entry at a bank made and no poof, no $60,000 created. Multiply that by millions of times and you start to see Fed hikes slowing the amount of money. But something else is happening. And you may have noticed this, that you can actually get a rate of return in savings today. Certainly, if you take a look at treasuries like 6 month, 2 year, 1 year, very safe ways to put your money away for a relatively short period of time, those rates are approaching 5%. Maybe they'll get to 5% after the Fed hikes on December 14th. And therefore, people are saying, you know what? Maybe for the first time, because now I can get a rate of return, maybe I'll save it instead of spend it. So less money comes. And plus, what's been happening, and very important, is the supply chain has been repaired. We are seeing ships move out of China. Our supply chain is better. In fact, there's an overabundance of inventory. So we are seeing more goods, less money, and inflation has started to come down. That's a great thing for us. So one of the things is that we think inflation is going to continue to come down because if you look at inventory levels in stores, they're building to extremely high levels. Inventory was building. Then, of course, we got shut down with the pandemic and there was no supply chain. We started to get it back, but then China shut down with their shipments. But since then, look at what's happened. We are seeing supply chain build back up and inventory on shelves is at super high levels. I mean, you're seeing this right now, right? Look at your email. You didn't just have Cyber Monday, you had Cyber Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Every day is a cyber sale day, right? 20% off, extended, 20% off, ends at midnight. Oh, next day. Yeah, we're going to extend it. We're going to extend it. People have too much goods and they're discounting them to get rid of them. And lower prices means lower inflation. So how do we measure inflation? So a way that we look at this is the Consumer Price Index. Now, this is really important because the Consumer Price Index, the next report is going to come out on Tuesday. And this is how we knew rates were going to go up over the summer and how we circled early on, months in advance, that November 10th would be the date that rates would start coming down. I'm going to bring you backstage and show you how to do this. Very few people understand this, so please pay close attention. So first of all, when we look at inflation, we can measure it by something called the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. Now, there's a headline number that includes everything, and then there's a core rate of CPI, which excludes food prices and energy prices. And that's what the Fed is more focused on, is the core rate. So you may scoff at that and you might say, well, wait a minute, Barry, isn't that ridiculous? I need food, I need energy, of course, right? Yes, we know that. But when you think about it, food is oftentimes influenced by weather conditions. Energy can be influenced by pipeline, by OPEC. So the Fed can hike rates, can lower rates. It's not going to change the weather. It's not going to change what OPEC or pipelines do. So the Fed wants to look at the core rate because this is what they feel they have influence over with their monetary policy. So the most recent report we got was inflation on a year-over-year basis is right here, 6.3%. That's great. How do we get there? We get there by taking the most recent 12 months, October of 2022, and each individual month has its own inflation component. So we go to November of 2021, you add them together, account for a little rounding and compounding, and you get 6.3%. Okay, so let's go back to June of 2022. Back in June and May of 2022, everyone was saying, inflation's peaked. Inflation is peaked now and it's going to start coming down. Inflation's at its peak. That was one of the only people put his neck out on the line and said, no way, inflation's going to get worse. And we used in our updates, we used the song Cruel, Cruel Summer for mortgage rates. And we told everyone and warned everyone that mortgage rates were about to go up a lot. Now, how did we know that? Because we felt that inflation was still persistent and the Fed did not get serious about hiking rates until June 15th. The day you hike rates, nothing really happens. It takes time. A month later, you see that your payment went up. 2 months later, you write the check and feel that the payment went up. And then you got to expect about 2 to 3 to 4 months for this to start to really take effect. So we didn't think you'd start to see improvement in inflation until around October. But you also look at the way that it is constructed. It's constructed based on the most recent 12 months. So we knew that the summer months that were going to come out, we didn't know what the numbers would be for July, August, and September at the time, but we said, hey, July, August, and September, we don't think inflation is really going to come down. But more importantly, what it's going to replace is the summer months from 2021, July, August, and September. Now, do you notice anything about these 3 months of July, August, and September? What were they, everybody? They were very what in relation to other months? Very low. So we felt that you were going to be replacing these low numbers with numbers over the summer that would be much higher. And therefore, inflation would go up. And everybody, what happens when inflation goes up? What did we learn? When inflation goes up, what do mortgage rates do? Mortgage rates go up. And folks, that's exactly what happened. Notice what happened, especially in August and September. And look at July, August, and September. Now, remember, August numbers came out in September. September's numbers came out in October. And you tell me what happened to mortgage rates during September and October. They skyrocketed. This pushed mortgage rates, it pushed inflation higher from the mid 5s to the mid 6s, and mortgage rates went from a little under 6 to a little over 7. Exact correlation. But why did we say, look to November 10th when we get the October inflation read? Here's why. Because we felt by October inflation would start to come down, and it did. But not only that, when October came out of 2022, what was it going to replace, everybody? It was going to replace October 21. And October 21 was a much higher number. So we felt this lower number replacing a higher number would cause the year over year to go down. And it did by the corresponding 0.3. It went down from 6.6 to 6.3. And what happened in the market? We had the best day in the market that we've had in years. Mortgage bonds improved by 206 basis points. Rates came down like 0.5% in one day. And since then, we've seen like another 0.5% rally. So this was exactly what we were looking for. Now, on Tuesday of next week, we're going to get the report for November. Now, we also anticipate this to be somewhat benign. We think the inflation numbers year over year will go down again because look at what it's replacing, 0.5 in November. So still relatively up there. So we believe that you're going to get a good inflation reading and you're also going to get a good rally. Now, this also piggybacks the very next day on December 14th, we're going to get the Fed announcement. Now, the Fed's still going to hike rates 50 basis points. They've committed to that. But I think what you'll hear from the Fed is a softer, gentler tone that, hey, maybe inflation is coming down. And I think the market will like that. So we think that next week could be a good week for interest rates and, of course, for real estate. Now, a good part of this inflation report is shelter, rents, owner's equivalent rents, and it actually makes up 39.3% of it. So let's take a look at what's happening with shelter. As you can see in real time, it's come down, it's decelerated a lot. It's not going up at 18% anymore, it's going up at 4%. So this is a big slowdown. But remember the way that the report is viewed by the Fed. It looks at the past year. So While in real life, it's only this, the Fed's averaging all of this when it looks at it in CPI. It's kind of like when you can remember going on a roller coaster. Remember that first big hill? It goes, da, 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 you get to the very top. And then there is a point in time where the front of the roller coaster is heading lower, but the back is still going up. That's like CPI. Real shelter in real time is heading lower, but the way the Fed looks at it in CPI is it's still going up. Because of this lag, we've got to get past January, and then that comes out in February, by the way. All of this will start coming down in March. All of this. What that means is you should get some improved inflation, but come March, it's going to come down faster and faster and faster, and that means mortgage rates will come down faster and faster and faster. This is very good news for us, folks. So where will mortgage rates go? We made a very bold prediction on rates. Now, we got to remember, so many people are saying mortgage rates are going to 10. Patrick, but David, Diana, so many housing wired, mortgage rates are going to 10. What did we say? We said mortgage rates are going much lower, and I'll tell you the rate we said in a moment. But first, I want to show you why. This shows you 35 years worth of history between the bottom blue line, the 10-year Treasury, and the top yellow line, 30-year fixed rate mortgages. Now, this is 35 years in one chart. So clearly, there's a lot of distortion day to day, but I believe that you could see that there is a trend here where they fall in line pretty similarly over time. All of these red arrows of equal size. So you can see that the spread between the two is between 175 and 200 basis points. If you don't know what that means 1.75% to 2%. So for example, if the 10-year Treasury were, let's just say, at 4%, mortgage rate should be at 6%. Same here, same here. You can see that. 5, 7. You can see what's going on, okay? But today, we saw a huge anomaly. Just a short time ago, the 10-year Treasury was a little over 4 and mortgage rates were over 7. Now, that's not 2%, everybody. You could do the math. That's 3%. First time ever. What the heck happened? Why are we seeing this huge jump? It's because part of a value of a mortgage is what's called the servicing value. You see, if you take a look at the way mortgages are constructed, nobody holds a mortgage. The company that you're paying your check to every month, they do not hold your mortgage. It's a hot potato. They sell it. So while everybody sells it, there has to be somebody that steps in and does the work that has to be done. Someone has to collect the payments. Someone has to write you a note if you're late, answer your questions, give you your payoff, make your tax payment, make your insurance payment, all those things someone has to do. They have to service the mortgage, which is why they're called a servicer. So they don't own it, but they have that responsibility. Now, they don't do it for free. They get paid. They get paid for doing that. So how much do they get paid? They get paid every month. So think about this. The more months they're expected to have it, the more money they're going to get paid, the greater the value is. So that's usually a big part of the mortgage value. And the more value a mortgage has, the lower the rate is. But now that servicing value is being viewed not in years like it normally is, 5, 6 years, but in months, because the smartest money in the world agrees with us that rates are not going up, but rates are coming down in the very near future. So therefore, you're only going to service that loan for a few months, 6 months, 7 months. And that means that you're going to collect very little, very few of those servicing payments, so it doesn't have any value. The less value in a mortgage, the higher the yield. So what we said was, as the 10-year Treasury comes down, because inflation is going to come down, it's going to bring the 10-year Treasury to come down. And as it starts to come down, and we said 3% or less, and everybody thought we were nuts. Take a look. We're under 3.5 right now. So we said it'll come down. And as it does, what happens? Mortgage rates will come down, not just along the same lines, but faster, because a 6% mortgage has more servicing value than a 7, and so on. So what's happened since then? Well, the 10-year Treasury has come down to under 3.5, and that spread's already reduced. Instead of 300 basis points, 275. So mortgage rates have come down faster than the 10-year. The 10 years come down, let's call it 0.5%. Lately, mortgage rates have come down 0.75%, because now you're starting to add servicing value. And this will continue. So where do we forecast mortgage rates going? Well, we think inflation comes down. That brings the 10-year Treasury down to around 3% or less. And that means there's a normal spread here. When the 10-year treasury is at 3, mortgage rates are at 5. 10-year treasury at 3, mortgage rates at 5. Same thing, same thing, same thing. So expect our prediction. And it was a very bold one at the time where everybody thought we were crazy, but now it doesn't look that crazy anymore. Mortgage rates somewhere around 6 3/8 or so, 6 1/4, 6 in that area. Well, you can expect that if this continues, we can get under 6 and right towards 5, maybe with a little luck, even under 5 in the first half of next year, maybe in the first quarter of next year. We expect this to happen. So I want you to look forward to this because the buyers out there have been hibernating. They got a little sticker shock going from 4 to 5, now to 7. And then they say, oh my gosh, maybe I'll wait. But there's a lot of pent up demand and inventory. You all know this, inventory is still very low. Now, there's a recession coming too, and rates go down during recessions. So why are people denying it? They say, well, the economy is still strong, but it's a mirage. It's an illusion. The economy is being propped up by people living off credit cards. There is more credit cards with balances than ever in our history in this country. Look at what's happened. People got accustomed to a lifestyle with the stimulus checks. And then once that stopped, they tapped their credit cards. And you know what else is happening? And it's very scary, is our savings rate is being drained as well. We're at the lowest savings rate and the highest credit card debt. And there are many other signs of recession, inverted yield curve, things like this. And the jobs reports that you see, don't let somebody say, oh, the job market, it is not. It's all an illusion. They don't understand how it works. That's all reason for a different presentation, but the job market is nowhere near as strong as you think it is, folks. So assuming we do all right, and we do get a recession, what happens to mortgage rates during recession? Well, history tells us that mortgage rates go down every time. 1% and then more than 1% and more, near 1% and then more, 2% and then more, 5% and then more, 4%. You get the picture. So can mortgage rates come down another 1%, 1.25%, 1.5%? Yes, 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 yes. So what about real estate? Is a recession bad for real estate? Well, you know what the media is going to say. The media says, oh, don't buy a home, recession. Well, let's look at the last 9 recessions and let's look at the facts. The Case-Shiller Home Price Index, that is the best way for you to measure home values. It has been up 8 out of 9 recessions. It's gone up during and after the recession 8 out of 9 times. The only one time was right here with the housing bubble. But it wasn't the recession that came first that caused the housing bubble. It was the housing bubble that caused the recession. Okay, so what caused the housing bubble? This is very important for us to understand. What caused the housing bubble? Well, it sure didn't help that you could do a fog up your mirror mortgage, right? Where, no income, no asset, no job, no down payment, bad credit. Sure, fog up a mirror, you're approved. You don't have any of that today, none of it, right? So the loans are totally different. But at its core, like everything else, prices are determined by supply and demand. The fact of the matter is there was way too much supply and way too little demand that started in 2006. And over the next couple of years, it kept on going that way and caused a huge housing crisis. So how do you measure supply and demand? Well, in housing, it's very simple. It's not somebody selling their home because they got to buy a home. New inventory coming on the market comes from builders, not just starting homes, but completing homes. When a builder completes a home, that's new inventory. It could be apartment unit. Each unit counts as new inventory. What about demand? How do you factor in demand? Demand is calculated by something called household formations. Okay, what's a household formation? Picture it this way. Mom, dad, and a young child. They all live in the same household. There comes a period of time, and in the United States, the average age is 33, that child moves out on their own. So now it's the same family, mom, dad, and a child, but now they live in 2 households instead of 1, so they formed a household. So household formations is demand. Household completions by builders is supply. Now let's take a look at 2006 and see what happened. The blue line is households being formed. The gold bar is households completed by builders in 2005. Now remember, every year, about 100,000 homes get replaced because of aging or whatever, or people want to freshen up, whatever it is. So builders typically build a few more homes than the formations, and it does keep things balanced. But holy cow, what happened in 2006? In 2006, builders built more homes than they ever had in our history. Take a look, ever. But meanwhile, the demand for homes dropped off a cliff. The next year, you had the same thing. The year after, the same thing. And by 2009, you had a huge housing bubble. If you want to see why homes are so strong today, look no further than what's happened over the past several years. Too much demand, not enough inventory, and home prices get pushed higher. Now, could this happen again? Let's think about it. Well, maybe builders won't build that many homes, but could we see household formations drop off a cliff? What caused this? So this is where we have to think. In 2006, much fewer households formed. Could it be because 33 years before that, those 33-year-olds moving out, maybe there were less births? So let's take a look at birth rates of these 33-year-olds back in 1973, which is 33 years before 2006. Wow. Huge drop in birth rates. Dropped again, stayed flat, and then moved up. That's almost like a hand in glove, isn't it? It sure is. Huge drop, dropped again, stayed flat, and you moved up. Yeah, it has to be that way because those people born 33 years ago are going to show the similar chart 33 years later. They're just going to move through. Now, what about the future? What does this hold for us? And you're going to probably want to know, why did this drop in births happen 33 years earlier? I'll give you the reason. In early 1973, which is right here, abortions were legalized, and therefore there were fewer births. Now, please, I'm not saying for, against, I'm not giving any opinion. I'm just giving you the statistical reason as to why there were less births. There was a reason for that. So as we take a look into the future, what do household formations look like going forward? Are they going to drop? Are they going to go up? Well, here we go. Here's what next year's formations look like based upon births from 33 years ago. They're not going down. They're going up, and they're going to stay up for a period of time. Even this little dip here, it's still nowhere near as low as the housing bubble. And remember, our population keeps increasing and people keep living longer. So we are looking at a very strong demographic for housing into the future. No way there could be a housing bubble. Now, when you take a look at household formations, in the United States, we average about 1.7 million formations, but the last couple of months, it's been softer. It's been 1.3 million. Why? Well, because people are staying with mom and dad a little longer because we have 7% mortgage rates. When mortgage rates come down to 5%, like we believe they will, you're going to get back to 1.7 million household formations. Now, meanwhile, what are builders putting up? Builders are only completing 1.4 million homes. Remember those 100,000 that get replaced annually? Total new supply is 1.3. And that's why you're not seeing these big price drops now. Now, some markets, remember, real estate's local, are seeing a little more. But according to CoreLogic, home values dropped, get this, a whopping 0.1%. After a 50% rise, they dropped 0.1% after 50% rise. Okay, so they're up 49.9% still from where they were in this latest run up. So what we're trying to say here is, in addition to seasonal factors, which every year at the end of the year things slow down, we're poised for an enormous move up in the spring market where you'll have an increase in household formations. But you're not going to hear from the media, and your clients are going to be staying at home because the media tries to scare them. That's what they always do. Look, Diana Olick, Patrick Bet-David, everybody else, Grant Cardone, so many people in the media, housing bubble, housing fears. But this is nothing new. Diana Olick reports on this 2 or 3 times a day with negative items. She's done this for the last 8 years with nothing but negative stories about housing, and she's been wrong for 8 years. Fortunately, we can pull up a handful, you could do this too, of her headlines over the past 8 years. So what did she say back in 2015? She said, we're in a bubble larger than 2006. Really? Prices have gone straight up. And if you got scared out of buying a $300,000 home, just in that 1 year, you lost 5% or $15,000. The next year, what does she say? I'm sorry? No, she says, we're in a new housing bubble. Rinse and repeat, same message over and over to try and scare you to get headlines. And prices went up another 17,000. The next, she says, homeownership doesn't build wealth. Really? Can somebody show me somebody in the last 5 years and 5 months who has not built wealth in real estate? Please show me one person. And prices went up again. And then so the next year says, it's better to rent than to buy. Can somebody show me in the last 4+ years who has been better off renting? Please, who's been better off renting? No one. And prices went up again. Then she said the housing market's about to shift in a bad way in 2019, but prices went up again. And her forecast for 2020 was Next year's going to be hard on the housing market. Well, I guess it's only hard if you didn't buy a home because values went up another 61,000 or 16%. And then in the middle of last year, she says, I'm going to make this big announcement. Don't buy a home, don't buy a home, don't buy a home, because the housing boom is over. She said that a year and a half ago. And since then, prices have gone up 18% or $80,000 more. Now, in the past 12 months, they've gone up 10%. So anybody who's purchased has done exceptionally well since then. But somebody's going to say, hey, wait a minute, Barry, inventory is rising. Look at the rise in inventory here. And they show this on CNBC, Patrick Bet-David posts, a lot of people. Look at this rise in inventory. They show this exact chart. And you'd have to say, look, between April and July, inventory did rise a lot. But what if we looked at a more long-term perspective? Look at the same graph, but not just 1 year. Let's look at 10 years. Do you see a pattern? Of course you do. Every year this happens. Why does this happen every year? Why is it seasonal? Why do we got a spring buying market? Why? Tell you. Remember when you were in school, if a new kid came into the class, maybe it was you, they faced some obstacles, not just with kids that could be mean or could be cliquish or friendships. It could be tough on them that way, but also the curriculum. In our country, no two schools, no two teachers teach curriculum the same way. So a smart kid can go to another school and be lost with the curriculum, with the way it's taught or where they are. It can make it very tough. Their grades could suffer. Parents don't want that. So they say, I want my kid to start at the beginning of the school year if I'm moving, which means I have to be in that home when? June, July, or August, which means when do I have to get rid of my old home? Guess when? April, May, June, July. April, May, June, July. This was shortened by COVID. April, May, June, July. April, May, June, July. Again. So when they show you this crap to scare you, don't buy into it. Explain to your client what's going on, because it's the only way you get to see opportunities. You think it's a housing bubble? This is a housing bubble. 4 million units in inventory for sale. Today, 1.2 million units, and we have 30 million more people in this country. Now, by the way, I showed you 1.2 million units. That doesn't tell you the whole story. That includes those under contract. They're off the market. How are you going to sell somebody a home that's under contract to somebody else and closing next week? Active listings in our country, 340 million people. There's only 750,000 active listings. That is half the normal, half what we normally have. Very tight inventory. Now, somebody might say, oh, it's up 20% from last year. It is, but from the lowest level on record in history and from very crazy records, when record lows, when people have to spend $50,000 over asking price. Now, here's another one. Oh, dramatic increase. Foreclosures, they're up 150%. This is from CBS Market Watch recently. Really? Up 150% from when? From last year? Oh, you mean the year we couldn't do foreclosures for most of the year? Yeah. Let's take a look at a chart. Yes, from a year we couldn't do foreclosures in 2020 for most of the year, or 2021 for most of the year, we're actually down from 2020. And yes, we're up from 2021. But compare it to any other normal year, will they tell you we're down 70%, 80%, 90%, 95% from any other year? No, because that doesn't sell, because that doesn't scare you. Foreclosures are not going to happen because people have too much equity. In 2008, they only had 19% of their home's value as equity. Today, it's 58%. You're not going to get foreclosed upon. Don't buy the garbage that's out there. You know what sells? Good news doesn't sell. You know what sells? Sex sells and fear sells. So what they're trying to do is sell you fear porn. Don't buy it. Now, here's another big one. And I need you to be really present here. And I need you to be a critical thinker and think ahead. So stay with me on this one, because this is the one that they hit everybody with. And this starts to unwind why there's an enormous opportunity. Affordability. Everybody's saying how terribly affordable it is. You could probably turn on CNBC today and Diana Olick will show the same chart and say, last year, if you wanted to buy a home and took out a $400,000 mortgage, the rate was 3.5 and your payment's $1,800. Now, the average income, this is what she won't talk about. The average income, according to Fannie Mae, not the qualifying income, but the average income was about $9,000 a month for the household. So two people earning about $50,000 a year. This year, in the last 12 months, values have gone up 10%. So that means the purchase price is 10% higher and the mortgage amount would have to be 10% higher. So that's going to probably be a higher payment plus the higher rate. Let's call it 6.5. So your payment's up $1,000 a month, and that's where they stop. But they don't talk about, did your income change? And it did. We have great data from the payroll company ADP. There's 150 million people employed in the US. They measure 25 million. This is like 1 out of every 6. That's an enormous sample size, 25 million records. And they tell you if you stayed at your job, you're making 7.6% more. If you switch jobs, you make 15% more. Because more people stay than switch, the average is 9%, which means that you're making a lot more money. It's not enough to cover it, but it's not as bad as you thought. Now, listen, there are other factors too. I'm paying more for gas. I'm paying more for food. I'm paying more for services. And folks, this is the market we have today. We have people that are making more, but that new home just costs them a lot more when everything else is considered. And that's why they're hibernating. But can we not stop here for a minute? Can we just look ahead a little bit? As we head into 2023, if we listen to ADP and their income goes up at 7.6%, you've now taken this whole problem away and you actually make it more affordable in 2023 than it was in the red hot market of 2021. But what about one more thing? What if we're right? And I know we're going to be on interest rates. Now you make it extremely more affordable. What starts to happen to home values when people look at this compared to renting, folks? You tell me. Look, our forecast is for low single-digit appreciation this year, but then it starts to pick up. Rents are going to be up 8% per year, and this sets up the perfect opportunity. Imagine a $500,000 purchase with 20% down. Now, last year, what'd you have to do? I'm going to give you $50,000 more than asking price, and I'm lucky if you let me do a home inspection, right? I can't even do that. And I got to fight to get that home. Now, it's normal. Remember, historically, it's normal to negotiate a little bit. So on a $500,000 home, maybe I offer $475. Maybe you come back at $495. I say, okay, $485. You say $490. Let's cut a deal $490. Okay, $490. You got that's only 2% reduction or $10,000. Now, most people will take that $10,000 and say, that's great. But here's what you're going to do. You're going to show why working with you, why working with Waterstone gives that customer the advantage, because you're going to teach them how to take that $10,000 savings that you get from the seller and turn it into many more thousands of dollars in savings. You see, because you don't want to take it as a price reduction. What you much better and much prefer to do is take it as a reduction in interest rate. One of the things you could do is called a 2-1 buy down. The 2-1 buy down costs about $9,100, which gives you the other $900 you use towards closing costs, because the seller doesn't care. They're going to give you $10,000. So what does that do? On that $400,000 loan, which is what you take on a $500,000 home, instead of paying 6.5, you pay 4.5. You save $500 a month, and the rate you got is 4.5. Now, next year, you refinance to the lower rate. The unused portion of the buy down gets refunded to the buyer. And by the buyer getting that money, then what they do, they use it to pay for their refinance. So they get to refinance for free. So they get the home they want today at a bargain. They get the rate they want today. They refinance for free to keep that rate or thereabouts. And then as everybody else finally sees the opportunity and jumps in the spring and summer, because rates are so low and there's not enough inventory, you watch your profits soar as your value goes up. This is the definition of a ground floor. It's an opportunity because it's not obvious. What you want to do is see the future before it becomes obvious, and that's what creates value in you. Or if you don't want to do the 2-1 buy down option, just buy a permanent buy down. Use that money to buy the rate down, and then you got the rate you wanted today, somewhere between 5.25% and 5.5%. You could always refinance later too and save money each month. Team, this is the opportunity you've been waiting for. Just show it to your customer. And now from a mathematical standpoint, you could show it to them, because Waterstone has this incredible tool that what they can do is show the customer from a mathematical basis why it is not a good idea to just take the reduction in price, how you could turn it into much greater savings. So first of all, from a payment standpoint, the 2-1 buy down mathematically has to be cheaper for the first 2.5 years. After that, the permanent buy down will be cheaper forever. At no point in time will the reduction in price be cheaper in monthly payment. But what about if you sold your home? Wouldn't we have to think about the fact that less down payment with the price reduction and less mortgage amount with the price reduction come into play? Yes. When would you benefit from that? Well, for the first 1.5 years, the 2-1 buy down mathematically has to be cheaper. Then there's a 6 months actually between 1.5 and 2 years that if you just happen to sell your home right here, you would have been better off by a small amount taking the price break. But then after that and forever, the permanent buy down would be better after 2 years. So please, folks, I want you to think about this and add value for your customer and show them Waterstone can create this in seconds for you, this exact graph to help your customers see the benefit. And therefore, what you'd be able to do is help them. Look, we see incomes increasing, inventory tight, rates dropping, prices have to go up, But what about people who say, look, I want to rent? Well, let's take a look at a rental versus a purchase, and let's make it ugly on the purchase and sexy on the rental. And I want to show you something here. This is something you need to show every one of your customers because they're getting scared, and you need to show them why you can create wealth in buying. If the purchase price is 400,000, let's say 10% down is 360. Now I know rates are cheaper than this, but let's say 7% mortgage, and they're going to live in this house for 9 years. And let's say for a minute here, something crazy. They never refinance. So they always keep 7%. Now, if you buy a home as opposed to rent, there's some negatives that I want to bring up. Let's remember to remind you that your taxes can go up. And on average, if they go up 2% a year, let's figure that in. You have repair costs. The landlord, if you're renting, will pay for that. But let's say it's $2,000 a year. So let's figure in $166 a month. And then the cost to sell the home. That's 6% of the appreciated value. You have to worry about that. You don't have that with a rent. So that's going to be based on the last 63 years, historical appreciation of 4.75%. Okay, now what about if I rented? Well, $400,000 home, easy. You can rent that thing for $3,000 a month or more. So let's say $3,000. Rents are going up right now at 8%, but let's just say they only go up at 6%. So is it better to buy or rent? Well, if you buy, it's $3,500 a month. If you rent, it's $3,000. So somebody say, hey, no brainer, I'm going to rent. It's cheaper. Well, not so fast. First thing is that rent goes up a lot faster over time. By the fourth year, your rent goes up faster than buying. And by the way, that includes the tax increases going up and everything, the repairs, everything. By the 9 years, you're living there. And that's never refinancing this thing either. You're still $33,000 cheaper buying than renting. But hold on a second. Are you really cheaper renting in the beginning? No. Watch this. Look, let me show you an example. Let's imagine I have cash in my left-hand pocket. If I take it from my left-hand pocket and I move it to my right-hand pocket and put it in there, is it still my money? Of course. But it is in a different location, right? Yes. Okay. When you're about to write your check, your mortgage payment, you're writing a check for principal and interest. We know the interest goes to the lender, but the principal portion, where does that go? It's your own money. Before you write the check, it's sitting in your checking account. When you write the check and send it to the lender and the lender cashes it, where is it? It's an equity in your home. Your loan amount's been reduced. Is it still your money? Of course it is, but it is in a different location. And that comes out to a ton of money. It's $44,000. So it's not cheaper to rent. The difference is your own money that you're putting in a forced savings account. It's not a cost. It's your own money. This is $77,000 more. But wait a second. That home value on average for the last 63 years goes up 4.75%. So even though it's forecasted to go up more than like 5.5%, let's just take 4.75%. What's 4.75% on a $400,000 home compounded annually? Hard to figure out in your head. So that's why we have to show it to our customer. Even Albert Einstein said compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world because this is life-changing. Do you know how much that is in appreciation over 9 years? $207,000. And then you have to figure in it's going to cost you something to sell it, so $36,000, but you do get a little tax break. So what's the benefit? $254,000 over the 9 years. If you're there for 10 years, it's $300,000. If you're there for 6 years, it's $124,000. I would tell the customer this, look, if you're going to be there for less than a year, clearly you should be renting because the cost to get in and get out are going to outweigh the appreciation and other benefits. But if you're going to be there longer than 2 years, why in the world would you not buy the home? Why? Because you don't like the way 6.5 sounds or 7% sound? Do you like the way $250,000 sounds? Yeah, of course you do. This is what we have to teach and show our customers. You know, investment, and by the way, this is something that you can show them too. And your loan originator that you work with at Waterstone, what they can do is they can do this for you and co-brand it. You should be bringing this to every listing appointment. You should be having this at every open house. I would be bringing it to my listing appointment and saying, here's one of the ways I'm going to market your home. There's many, but here's one I'm going to be showing. This is what I'm going to have as an open house. This I'm going to be marketing it on social media. Investment properties. 1 out of every 6 transactions is an investment property. Are you getting your fair share? Most people aren't because they don't know how to evaluate it. Let me show you how to evaluate it. If you take a $500,000 purchase price and the loan amount is 375, 25% down, 30-year fixed rate at 7% with 1 point for an investor. They're going to own the home for 10 years. Now, closing costs to buy, repair costs, property tax increases, the cost to sell, forecasted appreciation is 5.47% for the next 10 years. So I can easily rent a $500,000 home for $3,500 a month. And while rents are going up at 8, let's say 6 is the rental increase. And the vacancy rate, because now I'm going to have it vacant sometime, the national average today is 4%. So in year 1, I'll lose a little bit of money, but by year 10, I'm making lots of money. And here's your spreadsheet for analysis every year. I'm making 54% cash on cash return, but the real money comes from appreciation, and I do get the amortization. So here's my ledger. I've got over $500,000 in rental income plus appreciation over $300,000. That's $883,000. Now I deduct my expenses for interest, property taxes, insurance, repairs, closing costs to buy and sell, and I've got a profit of $415,000. My investment was $125. To yield this profit, it's a 332% return on my money. The compounded average annual return per year is 15.8%. Look, if you're a money manager at Fidelity and you get 15%, they put you in the Hall of Fame. That's why real estate creates wealth. Speaking of wealth, your net worth, how do you stack up? You know, Kiplinger's did a really interesting story. What's net worth? Net worth is all your assets minus all your liabilities, right? All your assets, that gives you your net worth. If you want to be in the top 1%, the very, very peak, top 1% in the United States, you know how much net worth you need? $10.8 million. That's a big number. Okay, how about the top 2%? That's pretty darn close. $2.5 million. Wow. How about the top 5%? What an exclusive club that is. Just $1 million compared to that. That's pretty good. How about the top 10%? To be in the top 10%, you need 800,000. In the top half, you need $500,000. And this is an interesting read from Kiplinger's and an interesting study that they did. But the most interesting part of it is that on average, 2/3 of all net worth, 2/3 came from, you guessed it, home equity. You're not going to be rich renting, folks. You're not going to get rich renting, and you're not going to build net worth renting. You have to be in the real estate game. Don't worry about what the media says. They don't have your best interest at heart. And then when you go do a listing, when you do an open house, why would you not have an appraisal in your hands? You don't want to get an AVM from Zillow because they're going to hawk your customer, right? So go to Waterstone. In 3 seconds, they will give you an MB estimate. They'll give you an AVM on that home, and you can see every value in the neighborhood, all the bedrooms, what the value is. It'll help you bring the buyer down to earth. And then, you know what? It'll show you where all the comps are too and do them to help you and show you all the trends in the market. What a professional listing appointment. What a great thing to have at an open house. This is what's going to set you apart. Show the opportunity. And by the way, the real estate report card, you'd be crazy not to use this and show this. What does this tell you? Historical appreciation, forecasted appreciation, how much I'm going to make on this home, what the demographics are, renters, how many households will be formed, how many homes are being built because we have the builder data. What's affordability? What is it looking like for unemployment, income, job creation, everything you want to know on one sheet. Why would this not be in every listing presentation? Why would it not be in every open house? Co-branded together as a team. One of the greatest investors in the world, Sir John Templeton, said the time of maximum pessimism is the best time to buy. I believe we're there. If you think of Warren Buffett, he said that you want to be greedy when others are fearful. There certainly is plenty of fear out there right now. Listen, I don't want you to get discouraged because it's easy to get discouraged right now. Some of you may even question, hey, is there a future? Yes. I've been in this game way too long. It's so scary. I calculated it like not too long. I said, holy shit, I'm in this thing 5 decades. It's like, yeah, because I got it in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s. I've seen this type of thing before. It comes down to the scientific element of it. Where are rates headed and why? What's inventory? What's demand? What are household formations? When you take out all the bullshit that's out there in the media, because they got their own agenda, and you listen to what's really important that's going to determine this on a scientific basis, this is the opportunity that you've been waiting for. Thank you for your time, everybody. God bless you guys. I appreciate you very, very much.
Thank you so much, Barry. We really appreciate it. I just wanted to say one thing for everyone on the call. Realtors that are with us, please contact your Waterstone mortgage loan officer if you're interested in this recording. We will share it with them, and they will be happy to get that to you. Mike, is there anything else you wanted to say in closing here?
I mean, I could stick around for a couple of minutes, Mike, if there's important questions that people have. And by the way, I just looked at the chat. Thank you so much. It's very touching. I really, really, really appreciate all of your kindness. Thank you so, so much for that.
So I will, I like to ask one question in the chat. The first question I was going to ask was the class valuable, but there's about 387 comments that it was amazing. But would you guys like to have this become something more consistent, that we bring in Barry, more than once every year, more frequently? And I think we have a lot of yeses. So I figured that would be the answer. Krista, you said that the recording will be sent out. Again, if you guys will just email your Waterstone mortgage loan officer, we should be able to get you the recording in the next couple hours here. We'll have to download it and get it uploaded. And again, I just wanted to say thanks, Barry, for your time. We know it's valuable. Appreciate your 18 years of advice and friendship, and what you've done for all of us, both at Waterstone and in the real estate community. And I think we got a lot of value out of this today. And I think our agent partners all over the country are gonna make a big difference next year with their customers, having the facts, not the media spin.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Barry. Bye-bye.